All right, everybody, welcome to episode 95 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Duper Flex, and the co-host with the most, Drew at Doctor underscore PRA. How you guys doing today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. Happy, excited, ready for football. One more week. Back in back in the saddle. We get to watch football that counts. And these last 32 months of off season are over. So I am ready for this. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. You hit the nail on the head. I am excited that this is the last week that we will be talking about not having regular season football until pretty much the new year, which is exciting as hell. Bill and I were talking about one of our teams before we got on, and that's what people are doing now. People are looking at rosters now, really sizing up what the hell's going on with them, maybe seeing where they did well during this offseason, maybe seeing some holes that they wish they would have patched before the oncoming season. But it's just so much fun, man. I love trading. I love drafts. I love all that stuff. But this is where I'm my happiest because not only do I have these teams, but I get to watch football. So let's go. Let's go. Can't come soon enough. But of course, we got to hit this news before we do anything else. And the first order of business here, J.K. Dobbins tears his ACL and is out for the season. And honestly, I don't know how many zero RB truthers will be born from this offseason. I mean, we've lost Cam Akers, we've lost Travis Etienne, now we've lost J.K. Dobbins, and it's just like all the zero RB truthers are coming out of the woodwork and trying to convert as many people as possible. So, what's the impact here on the J.K. Dobbins injury?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's obviously it's interesting. Like I don't know if we're gonna see like in football wise um if there's going to be a huge difference, right? Because it's not like Lamar's dumping off to the running backs that often. So, all it's going to be is next man up kind of thing. And they were both uber efficient behind that line last year. So, I'd expect the same with Gus being the number one guy. I don't necessarily think it bumps him up like a shit ton, but I think it's still they're still going to go with multiple backs like they do all the time. So I don't think he's dynamic enough to, necessarily be like a top 12 to 15 back. But I wouldn't mind having him on my roster, and you know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I feel, I guess. But there's a lot of other guys I would prefer just because I don't see him catching too many passes.
Yeah, I'm curious if that changes their balance at all. If they'll let Lamar throw a little bit more or expect him to throw any more. But I've got him in a couple places, and I've definitely floated the idea out there, put him on the trade block to see if anybody wants to pay up for him. But I think everybody's pretty tempered at this point, kind of waiting to see what happens with him. But yeah, I don't see a whole lot of change. Lamar, I think, still stays the central focus, and he's the one ultimately that I've been trying to make moves for unsuccessfully all summer.
Yeah, Jordan, you bring up a good point with putting him on the trade block, and I think we've become more savvy kind of as players where we kind of but we have information about which injuries are really bad and which injuries may not be as bad. And, ACL, a lot of times, guys, they do miss the year, but they get ready, they come back, and usually they're 80% the next year coming back. That's different than the Liz Frank that Travis Etienne had or the Achilles that Cam Akers had. And, that's why you're probably getting even more severe discounts on those guys as opposed to Dobbins. Because we kind of know like ACL, yeah, it's bad, but he'll probably be back. He'll probably be pretty damn good when he comes back. So that's always helpful. But I have a question for you guys. If you are running back, I don't want to say desperate, but let's say running back poor in a league, and someone puts Gus Edwards on the trade block, are you guys trading for him, and what would you trade?
I mean, I'm not trading a first, and I think that's what a lot of people are going to expect right now. So I'm probably not getting him. There's just so many other backs I would rather have for a similar price. And, somebody that I can feel comfortable is going to catch 30 to 40 passes, hopefully that they dump it off to him more, but because he'll have more volume. But I'm not real sure that, he's not the guy I'm going out to get, I guess, is what I'm saying. I'd rather hold and see if I can fall into something, or maybe just buy one of the guys, or, on waivers, get Justice Hill, or was it Tyson Williams, and see what happens. Maybe one of those guys fall into the Gus Edwards role from last year, and he's still getting a decent amount of volume for what, 15% of the price or less.
Yeah, I'll kick the tires and see what they're looking for, and depending, of course, on what each team needs. If I'm pretty deep at wide receiver, I'll throw some depth at him at wide receiver or something, and see if a guy like, I don't know, maybe like Michael Pittman or something might get me Gus Edwards back. If I'm going to go and pay up to try to add Gus Edwards, I'm going to see, our guys like, I might as well go after a James Robinson or a Damian Harris or Kareem Hunt or somebody like that as well. Somebody who's done it, and somebody might get some more volume. So I'll definitely kick the tires and see. And, you never know. You catch somebody on the right day, if you feel like you do a sweet deal, and then, 6 days from now, I might feel like crap anyways after he plays his first game.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Bill and I are pretty aligned on this. I was thinking like a second and like an end of your bench type guy. Just be like, hey, here, because I think Gus will be very good this year, but in Dynasty, it's just this year. Like next year, you're assuming J.K. Dobbins is going to be back pretty good, and then what? Then then you have Gus Edwards back at what he was doing before this J.K. Dobbins injury, and like Bill said, that ain't worth a first. What you're going to get from him in 2022. So I think Bill and I are kind of aligned on that one, which is fun. It's more fun when we fight, Bill, but it's also fun when we agree on things. So we'll agree on this one. Next one. The hits just keep on coming, unfortunately. Irv Smith has meniscus surgery. He's going to miss 4 to 5 months, and then the Vikings go out and trade for Chris Herndon. So obviously we know Irv is pretty much out for most, if not all, of the season. Do either one of you care about Chris Herndon?
Not really. He's a flyer that I'm willing to cut after week 2. I'm not sure how. He didn't do it with the Jets, and the Jets were okay moving him, and so I guess I just don't. And they only have one tight end on their roster now, so that shows you what they really think of him. They're not even worried about their lack of depth at tight end. So, I think it's a flyer. You hope that he falls into some targets, but I can't imagine he's going to be like a major focus. And I think I'd rather have Tyler Conklin, honestly, than Herndon, just because he knows the offense. He's been getting those reps. He's showed a little bit last year, made some really good catches and things like that. So if I'd rather just get Conklin and see what happens. And I think Irv's pretty much out for the year. That's right. It's it's sad, man. This guy comes out with all that hype, and he just gets so young. Just those young tight ends typically end up doing pretty well because they have so many more years to learn the game and mature into their roles. But man, he's I mean, where is he at next year? You know what I mean? Like, are people still gonna be like valuing him at all? I mean, it's too bad. Like, what you're gonna be able to get Irv for what, like probably third rounder next year, from some people.
Not from this guy.
No, you're still a believer?
I am. He's probably behind Fant. He's probably my number 2 tight end by roster percentage at this point. Added him in a lot of trades over the last year or so, but I've got Herndon in a couple spots. We'll see. I don't know that I'm ready to cut bait that quickly. We'll see how they do with their tight ends this year. I'm excited for the spots that I kept Thielen. I was trying to offload him in a couple places. I'm hoping this opens another window to move him if he gets some early volume. But I don't know that I want a whole lot to do. I would agree, Bill, as far as what it takes to get either of those guys. I'd rather have Conklin if I don't already. So probably going to go out and look at waivers tonight and see what's available out there.
I was just searching that actually.
Yeah, and it's funny. I saw a tweet, and I think this was from a beat reporter or something, that before Irv Smith left the facility, he said to Conklin, go out there and go get your money, because apparently Conklin is in his walk year. So now, I mean, it looks like an opportunity has opened up. I don't want to say it has, because who knows what this coaching staff thinks of Herndon, and maybe they do something. But Irv Smith, unfortunately, is going down the road of another Alabama tight end, O.J. Howard, where you kind of, unlimited potential, and then injuries start getting in the way, and then it's like, what could have been. Maybe O.J. Howard does it this year. Maybe he comes back healthy and he plays with a, never aging Tom Brady and gets a bunch of work done. But, I'm just hoping that man can stay healthy for a year and maybe prove why he was a first round pick. So the last one, and maybe, the most surprising cut, and you guys can correct me if you think there was a more surprising cut. Cam Newton, he gone in New England. They cut him. Who knows where or if he'll end up somewhere else. There was a report right afterwards that Dallas was taking a look at him. I don't know if that's really true. They picked up Will Grier, I think, today. So who knows? But what do you guys think about this? Were you guys surprised? And is there a spot where you think Cam could end up and maybe be valuable for your teams?
Yes, definitely surprised. I thought they'd at least try to either keep him as a backup or trade him, get some kind of value back for him. But and then B, if there was somewhere I thought I saw people, wishing and hoping maybe he lands in Houston, depending on what happens with Watson, to give them, some sort of credibility there. So he'd have some opportunity if he went there. But nowhere else off the top of my head seems like a decent spot for him to land with any kind of opportunity this year.
Yeah, I mean, I was also surprised, but I guess, when you kind of think about it, it does make a little sense that, like, does Cam really want to be basically benched in a way, you know what I mean, and play back up to a rookie coming out? It's and then New England, if Belichick likes him, at least it gives him an opportunity to find another opportunity before some other people. So, like, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and it doesn't put that heat on Mac Jones with Cam looking over him looking over his shoulder at Cam, throughout the season. So, it did surprise me though that he got cut. And what place? I mean, he's going to have to say, well, I am willing to be a backup. Like, I mean, is he willing to? I mean, he's the best, throughout his life. How can you turn that ego down? You know what I mean? Just of any player who's been successful in the NFL to accept that they're going to be a backup. And, I think that's what a lot of players struggle with. So I don't know. I mean, it's ultimately something that he's going to need to figure out. Where would I want him to go? I mean, it would have to be somewhere where it's already an offense that has a rushing quarterback that I feel like he can succeed if something happens to them. I think he'll just sit out until maybe something like that happens, like where maybe a player gets hurt. Houston kind of does make the most sense, but I mean, Tyrod's there. I mean, is it really? I mean, sadly, is it really that different now? Like, I'm not sure Cam's that much better anymore, and that's unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, it would just be like sitting behind. Like, I mean, the Lions would be happy to have him as a backup, but he's gonna want $10 million a year or something like that. So I think that's gonna be the challenge, like for any team.
Yeah, how much was Cam making? Because I feel like he
I think
wasn't
it was
making.
8 million or something like that.
Was it 8 million? Yeah, so I don't even think he's. I mean, he can ask for whatever he wants, but I don't think he's even going to get anything approaching that 8 million now that he's been cut. I mean, I feel almost like he should go to a team like the Chiefs, where he can just kind of get that Andy Reid shine on him. You know, it seems like guys that go there, they get that shine, then they can go to other places and, at least get another contract. Or hell, go to Seattle. Pete Carroll loves talking good about his players. I mean, Pete Carroll will probably say he's the second best quarterback he's ever seen, and guy runs like a deer and hits people like a linebacker and throws the one of the tightest spirals he's ever seen. Just let Pete Carroll talk you up and for a year, and then go out into the world and get yourself another contract from somebody. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. I mean, Houston on paper seems like a good fit, but I don't know how many people want to really walk into that mess and deal with all of not just the stuff on the field, because that team is going to stink out loud, but all the behind the scenes stuff that's probably going to be going on in Houston. And if Deshaun and Cam Newton have any kind of relationship, even if they're just casual text friends, I'm sure Deshaun's gonna be like, "Don't come here, man. This ain't it." So yeah, I mean, I think it would be in Cam's best interest to be a backup on a good team, on a Super Bowl caliber team, and just kind of
go to the Bucs and go chill with Brady.
Go. I mean, hey, listen, they got Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask as backups right now. So I mean, Cam Newton look mighty fine as a backup in Tampa Bay. But all right, so that's the news. I think we hit the high notes on that. We're gonna run right into what we saw on the timeline. And this first one here is from Len at Lenny AM3. This is a Dynasty 1 QB PPR. That means Bill's not going to be able to talk about this one. It's only that 1 QB life. We got Cam Akers on one side of this deal, or Gus Edwards, a 2022 second, and count them 3 2022 third round picks. So, Bill, why don't you start us off on this one?
I'm taking Gus in the picks. Like, I just think that I'm not sold that Akers is ever going to be back to anything close to where people expected him to be. So I'd rather take Gus the points this year, and then I get those picks. I mean, if I end up falling out of contention, I can move Gus and that second probably for maybe even somebody's first this year, and win-win. So I'd rather just take a player I know is going to get on the field that could potentially increase his value. Whereas Akers, we just have no idea what's going to happen. And does he end up being the same he was coming this year? Then I lose out. I'm okay with that. Just because I'm basing it. That's an outlying situation. Otherwise, like if he comes back and he's, producing as he was expected to this year. So, yeah, I think it's pretty easy for me. I would take that trade.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I remember when Cam Akers injury first happened, we were talking about value, and I remember saying, I would probably spend a second, maybe 2 seconds if you could really sweet talk me into it, but that would be kind of my limit. People were mentioning first at the time, and I was like, a dude coming off an Achilles, I'm not paying first for that. I don't care who the guy is. I kind of wish you could get at least maybe turn the 3/3 into a second or something. But if this is the absolute best offer, you shop them around, and this is it. Take it. And like Bill said, and this is a part of the game that I'm weak at, kind of the trade after the trade, and Bill kind of mentioned it perfectly when say, hey, maybe week 8, somebody is desperate at running back. Hey, Gus in this second for your first, and somebody might be like, yeah, I'm desperate. Let's do this. At least I get another second round pick on top of Gus, and I can use Gus this year. So I like that kind of trade after the trade. All right, Drew, what's your 2 cents on this?
I totally agree. It'd be a real easy deal if I was trying to move Cam and I was able to get that package back. That's a lot of sweeteners to add to either move up a little bit next year in the draft or try to incrementally improve through other trades. So, yeah, even if I didn't need Gus, even if I was trying to dump points, that's an easy turnaround after week 1 or 2, and I don't even care what I get back at that point.
Oh, okay.
I did it. I told you guys beforehand I would do it, and I did it. Talking while muted. Yeah. So this, I mean, I think you nailed it, Drew. This trade, if this is what you can get, I mean, I think it's a pretty good haul. You're getting 4 draft picks plus Gus Edwards, and honestly, I mean, I get, a lot of people are saying, let's see what Marlon Mack does this year, kind of as a template for. But the problem is that Marlon Mack, as much as we love him and we think he may get some touches, he's going to be the 3rd string running back on that team. So even if he gets, a few touches and he looks good, if Cam Akers comes back, we expect him to be the number 1, full workload, bell cow or close to bell cow back. And I don't know if there will be a lot of similarities there. So, yeah, it's a shame, but at this point, I think you take what you can get for Cam Akers. Hopefully, it's a deal like this where you get a lot of sweeteners and you move on and you think of what could have been with Cam Akers. But this next one here, this is another 1 QB, Bill. I mean, sorry, we're like segregating you here. We're like putting you.
And I'm the one that put those on the show sheet.
we're segregating you with this
challenging himself. I like it.
That's right.
The 1 QB nonsense. They don't call him super duper flex or nothing. But this one is from Dynasty Trades guy at Dynasty Trader 2. Would you take this offer? Rebuilding, best offer I have received. 12-team 1 QB standard dynasty. Trey Lance and Laviska Shenault or Stephon Diggs. So, Bill, since you put this on here, we'll let you go last. Drew, what do you got here?
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've done a 1 QB league. I think this ultimately comes down to how much you believe in Trey Lance being, a top 12 quarterback. So if you think he's going to be a perennial QB1 and you're set for the next 10 or 15 years, I could definitely see taking that side. The Bills homer in me immediately gets drawn to Stephon Diggs being tied to hopefully Josh Allen for the rest of his career here. So yeah, assuming it's PPR, of course. I would probably take Diggs.
It says standard.
It says standard. Oh,
Problem is we don't know what standard is anymore because a lot of sites have made like half point PPR the standard. So we got to really start doing the non PPR if we're gonna go non-PPR because the standard has changed over the last few years.
I probably take my shot at Lance, depending on who my other quarterbacks are. If it's standard, I don't know that Diggs is going to have as many touchdowns as he had last year. They've added a little bit there for the wide receiver room. Allen's always going to run his in, so yeah, I probably take the shot on Lance and hope that he's my quarterback of the future.
All right, Bill. So you and I might not argue, but Drew and I can argue because it's definitely Stephon Diggs. We've seen the connection between those two, and I think some of Josh Allen's ascent to being right now QB2 in most people's book is because of Stephon Diggs. They got a little bit better at the wide receiver position, but I don't think that's going to factor into what Josh Allen thinks when he's out there and he sees the rush coming and he goes, whew, I could throw it to Stephon Diggs or I could throw it to somebody else. What am I going to do? He's probably throwing it to Stephon Diggs. Personally, I think Stephon Diggs is going to have another monster season. I do agree with Drew. I think those touchdowns are going to come down a little bit, but he is going to be the 1 and the 1A in Buffalo. And in a one quarterback league, I can find quarterbacks anywhere. So give me that stud, and you could take Laviska Shenault and Trey Lance, and maybe that guy will be looking. He will be a top 12 guy, but I'll find another top 12 guy. I'll trade a late second for Kirk Cousins because nobody ever likes him, and he's a top 12 guy too. So yeah, I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs. So, Bill, you put the question on here, and you get to break the tie. So, what's it going to be?
Yeah, so, I think that Chenault's interesting if it is standard, because you might get a little bit more, a few more touches just because, they do some dipsy-do stuff with him. But, I don't, I'm Diggs is the answer for me. I think that I appreciate rolling the dice on Trey Lance. I think that he will be, if he pops, he's going to be one of those top 6 quarterbacks, right? Worst case top 9. So I get that, but at the same time, I mean, there's always going to be another quarterback coming up that has that opportunity. And at what point do these running quarterbacks just become the norm, and every team can end up with one? And then there's no value difference if they're all, I mean, there's obviously going to be a better one than another, but who's to say Trey Lance is going to be better than the next guy that comes out doing something similar? And so that's where I think we're starting to run out of the, in one QB especially, running out of opportunities to take advantage of these rushing quarterbacks, because pretty soon they're all going to be similar in that regard. So 2 years down the road, we might have 12 quarterbacks that everybody's like, oh, well, we all get a rushing quarterback. Let's not even worry about it. And all the quarterbacks are going to drop in value again. So I'd just rather go with the elite wide receiver that's shown it. And there's probably 8 to 10 wide receivers that I'm willing to put on my team or keep on my team because they are just that tier above everybody else. And so I think it's Diggs because I know what I'm getting. I, feel comfortable that he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver, going into the future. And so, yeah, for me, it was kind of easy to say Diggs. I would actually need more, probably a Gus Edwards or something thrown in there for me to consider that trade.
So just a little sweetener. You wouldn't need something big to make the trade even, in your opinion?
I mean, Gus Edwards, whatever that is.
That's why I said a little sweetener.
Yes.
So you don't need a first or something added to it to make it.
Nah, I feel like he's the proverbial, between a first and second value, right? So that's kind of like I'm okay with something like that. But I mean, it would really just depend on my team. Like, do I really want to add 2 more depth pieces? Do you know what I mean? Like, because I kind of feel like that's what Chenault and Gus Edwards would be like in a that sort of. I would hope, at least for my teams, if I'm making that sort of trade, I guess. But
Yeah, and as a rebuild, you're kind of looking at it as, what if you are going to go with kind of a 3-for-1 or 2-for-1, uh what kind of young piece do you see blowing up in, 2 years, let's say, a
or do
year
you
or
take
two?
like Cam Akers?
I mean, that's kind of that lotto ticket where it's like, all right, like this could be really awesome, or this could be like a steaming pile of junk next year. But if you're rebuilding, I mean, I think you need some guys like that where it's like, man, this could be awesome, or
Yeah.
hey, I'm rebuilding, so this guy flamed out. Cool, like we'll just try to find the next one of those. So
So at
yeah, I
some
like
point,
that.
so at some point down the line here, Bill, are you saying you might change quarterback scoring to 8 points per thrown touchdown?
I'm interested to see like what the scoring would have to do, right? Like, because, um, like, why should we weigh passing touchdowns for more? I mean, really, right? Like, I think the scoring's fine. I just think that you're gonna have so many more quarterbacks that are all gonna be similarly tiered. Um, and there won't be a benefit to drafting one early because what you get with QB10, the difference isn't going to be great enough for me to draft that other guy 4 or 5 rounds earlier. And I think we'll see a little bit of inefficiency because everybody rushes for those running quarterbacks right now. So
Yep.
people will be drafting them early, but then everybody else that's kind of aware of what's happening is going to sit back and pick that QB9, that QB10, get the value while all these other people are overspending on similar players. So, I mean, I don't doubt that that's what's going to happen. Is it going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 8 years? I don't know the answer, but I have to expect it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point there. Maybe one of these days we'll dive in deeper. But as the draft classes keep kind of coming by, we keep seeing more and more guys. I mean, this year alone, we talk about Justin Fields, we talk about Trey Lance, and we don't talk about Trevor Lawrence, but I mean, he's got some wheels too. So we're starting to get more and more of these guys, like you said, and soon, you might have one pure pocket passer that's in the top 12, but those other 11 spots are going to be mobile rushing quarterbacks.
Well, and it's crazy. Like Justin Herbert just had like a spectacular rookie season, right? Arguably one of the best
The
rookie
best.
quarterback season, and he's not even sniffing top 6 right now. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. Like, but there's a reason for that, and people are aware of it. So, like, he's almost getting to the like Fields and Lance are almost at that same tier as Herbert, and Herbert's had a glorious season, and these guys haven't played it down yet. It's just everybody wants that. They're just aware of how much of an advantage that is.
Well, and we can kind of flip it to the opposite side too. A guy we talked about in the news, Cam Newton. We the reason why we were even talking about a NFL quarterback that threw for, I believe, single digit touchdowns last year, threw for. The only reason why we talked about him, and I had arguments with people at the very beginning of this offseason about, Cam is going to come back. And the only reason why we even cared is because he rushed for double digit touchdowns. And, soon we're going to have guys, even a guy, and I'll bring it up, like Dak Prescott, he doesn't rush for a lot of yards, but he rushes for a lot of touchdowns. And that's kind of a little bit of the secret sauce. He's not a Lamar who's, will rush for 1,000 yards if you let him, or Kyler Murray or anything like that. But Dak is always good for like 6 rushing touchdowns, and you're like, well, those, especially if you're weighting rushing touchdowns more than passing touchdowns, you're like, well, that's great. That's, a bunch of extra points that I can't get with Kirk Cousins or Tom Brady or, the difference with Tom Brady is that he can throw for 5,000 yards whenever he wants. But unless you have a pocket passing quarterback that can do that, you're, you're stuck with a lot of guys that, like you said, might be at the bottom end of that top 12, but the upside of those rushing guys is so much more. So it's an interesting point. I'm glad that you brought it up. So this next one here is from Kyra Wadarowski. I've messed that up and I'm sorry. At Fantasy FF Kyra. I'm someone who plays in multiple leagues across several platforms. If you're also this crazy person, do you construct your team using a lot of the same players or switch them up? This is an interesting one because I believe both Drew and Bill play in more leagues than I do. I play in a decent amount of leagues, but these guys are professionals. So what's your viewpoint on it? Are you, I want my guys, they're my guys, get them on as many teams as I possibly can? Or are you just like, hey, every draft is its own living being, and I just kind of go with the flow and I take what I take what's given to me, and all my teams end up different. So where are you guys on this? Bill, why don't you start us off?
So I'm not the guy that's gonna be like really. My takes aren't very firm because I'm totally aware that I don't know much, and I think that most people, if they really looked at it, would say the same thing. Like everything we can guess, but I don't feel like me going all in on somebody that I feel is, where you're gonna have to spend a lot of capital. Like I don't feel like putting all my eggs in one basket. So I'd much rather spread it across. Now there's players that I have more of just because I do believe in them more than maybe other players in that same tier or something like that. But I'm not going to go have 90% of that player in my leagues or something like that. Like now there are, like, if it's players that are drafted later on, like those are the players I'm taking risks on. Right. So I was just looking at like my roster break or my percentages of how many, and all of the top players except for George Kittle are players I got in like second, third, fourth round draft picks or waiver wires. Like Jared Patterson, like I have a ton of him. It's he was a guy that I bet on, and he made the team, so at least there's. But those are the kind of guys I'm willing to. But then if he didn't, I can cut all those shares, and I have roster space. So, or it makes my decision on who else I have to cut a little easier. So that's usually where I'm really taking, having a large percentage of them on my rosters. But like the real like top end guys, I'm very unlikely unless they become a top guy after I picked them up. I'm not very, very likely to have like a large percentage of them across my teams.
So FF_Schmuck says, what up, guys? Patterson's looked great this offseason, and another guy is Scotty Phillips. Bill, the interesting thing about this comment is that in the Timeline OG Listener League, one of the best teams in the league has both of those guys on the same roster.
What?
I mean, Jared Patterson, Scotty Phillips. Bill, you said everything that I was going to say, and you said it way better probably than I ever could. In those kind of formative rounds, I go with, kind of the best players that are there. I don't take a lot of risks. I don't, do anything real crazy. But it's those later round guys that I always seem to kind of, find myself having a lot of. I mean, I think most of my breakdowns, if you look at kind of my top 5 owned players, it's probably like, the Blake Jarwins of the world and stuff like that. It's just guys that like hey, I think this guy is good. I'll grab him, or even as a trade throw in. Oh, hey, could you add a little, this guy on there? Oh yeah, I don't care about that guy. Sure. Oh, perfect. I think he might break out, so that works out for me. So yeah, normally kind of the top guys I don't have a ton of exposure to across all of my teams, but those later round guys, those guys that, a guy that I went out and got a bunch of shares of this off season was OJ Howard, a guy that did really well in the games that he was there with Brady, and just kind of saying, people are tired of all the injury stuff. He's a guy that I can get for a third or whatever. And good news is that if he can actually stay healthy, I think him and Brady will blow up, and they'll have some fun together. And if not, whatever. I spent the third round pick or fourth round pick to trade for him, and that's not anything that I'm really going to lose sleep over if I have to cut him next year because he got hurt again and no one picks him up. So I'm kind of with you. Usually my teams look kind of different with some, bench similarities. All right, Drew, what about you?
I found this one. I thought it was interesting. I do like some consistency. I think it started because as I built extra leagues, I just wanted to be able to root for the same guys on Sundays. So that's kind of where it started. But I would say, the top 2 or 3 rounds of any kind of startups, I try to get similar guys because I believe in that top end talent, and that's what I want to build the team around. And then anything after probably the 4th round through into the early double digits, that's where I'll mix it up based on the value that drops. Try to find some of the inefficiencies there if people are still going after some of the same guys early, or I'll mix up, which positions I load up on in the middle rounds. And then I'm with you guys as far as the dart throws; those are very similar. And I think Bill and I are on the same page there as far as either everything pops and it's great, and I've got a lot of value in the same positions, or it's an easy cut, because that's what I'm looking at this week is all these roster cut downs, and how the heck do I make some of these choices? I know, Billy, we were talking about it last week, trying to pick out some of the guys, and hopefully some of those guys have already been cut by their teams already to validate some of that. But I had a hard time this morning in my home dynasty league. I had to cut your boy Thad Moss as my 6th tight end. But yeah, it definitely makes it easier if the end of your bench is similar, so you can either cut them all or cut the same person in all the leagues, or you find that's a nice little value you got everywhere. I wonder what I can get in each league for this person. So I'd say I bookend it. The top of my draft and the bottom of my draft probably look more similar, and then the middle probably 70% or so. That's where I look for some of the inefficiencies and try to mix it up and try to hedge a little bit. I might get A-Rob in one league and then go for McLaurin in another or something like that, just to see how they pan out.
If Drew, you're my co-host, but you're also my friend. It's the only reason why I won't kick you off of the show after breaking my heart with the Thad Moss news. Thad Moss, guy gets no respect. Guy's gonna ball out this year, and guy gets no respect. So, but yeah, I mean, I think you're right, man. A lot of times, this is where it gets tough this week, where you have to make cuts. Bill and I were talking about cuts in a league that we co-own in, and we're like, oh, maybe we should cut this guy. No, we should cut this guy over here. And you're right when the team just does the dirty work for you, and this guy stinks. We're cutting him. Oh, okay, perfect, good. I can cut him too, even if he gets re-signed somewhere else. Now you're talking about 2 teams in the same year having to learn an offense. That second team obviously doesn't have the level of faith as the first team that had him. So, you're already looking at a team that kind of has a depth chart set and is just maybe just trying to fit a depth piece in there by this cut that they're signing. But yeah, I mean, I think we all build our teams similarly. And this was a pretty close poll, so 56% said they like, the like all their teams to be pretty similar. They like the same guys. They like, not having to make a lot of decisions on that Sunday. And 44% said, "Hey, man, we switch it up. We're just out here trying to build teams, and they don't always have to be the same to be to our liking." So I like that a lot. So this next one here is from Josh Crocker at JCC Rocker or J Crocker. I don't know. Noah Fant has the same, if not better, range of outcomes than TJ Hockinson has. So this was an interesting one, and I read it and I was like, I don't know about that. But if you believe that, yes, TJ Hockinson is on a team that has maybe one other guy, DeAndre Swift, to throw the ball to. They cut Brashad Perriman, so there goes 100 more targets in the air that you can just divvy out however you want, because Brashad Perriman was that guy. Yeah, maybe he's into block a little bit more, but I just don't see how the range of outcomes can be the same, if not better, considering all of the weapons that Denver has. And now that Teddy Bridgewater is starting, I mean, it's a lot of weapons, but, the quarterback, he's very, very mild, not a bad quarterback, just a mild quarterback. And you have, Cortland Sutton, you have Jerry Jeudy, you have Javonte Williams, you have Melvin Gordon, and even if you go a little bit deeper, they have Tim Patrick, they have KJ Hamler, they're actually pretty deep at those skill positions. So I don't know if Noah Fant, barring injuries to some of these other guys, can really carve out the role that TJ Hockinson is going to be able to carve out by being, I think, most likely to be the most targeted player on, a not so good Detroit Lions team. But maybe you guys read this and you saw something that I didn't. So we'll leave Bill for last, since this is his hometown team and he can school us with his knowledge of the Lions. Drew, what do you think?
I think TJ Hockinson sucks. You should trade him to me. It'll improve your team. If you want to throw a sweetener in like Elijah Moore, I'll think about it. But no, I think Fant's got a much lower floor. The only thing that I think could get in Hawk's way is injury if he doesn't hold up. But I mean, Fant's gotten dinged up in the past as well. So, and I think their ceiling is very similar. So I do like that. So if Fant is cheaper, I'll draft him, or I'll trade for him if I can get him for a little bit less. The quarterback situation, I could go either way. I would probably, if I had to choose, I'd prefer Goff over whatever's happening in Denver. So if I had to pick one of those two tight ends now, I'd definitely rather have Hockinson on my team, especially if I'm competing this year. But yeah, no, I think the ceiling is lower. The floor is lower for Fant. Their ceiling's, similar at best. So no, I'm not. I'm sorry, I can't get on board with that tweet.
So Bill, before you go, what I heard from Drew is that he has accumulated 5 first-round picks to get TJ Hockinson and Elijah Moore from us. So that's good news. That's good news. But go ahead, Bill. What do you think about
3/3? 3/3. A lot of sweeteners.
Deal. I think that the statement is probably correct that potentially could be even better. I mean, you have Hockinson, who is just a more complete tight end, right? Like, so when Fant's out there, he's not blocking. Like, he is out there to catch passes, and that's it. So, like, he has a higher ceiling in fantasy football, totally. Like, I mean, is it substantially greater than Hockinson? I don't think so. But I think that there is a slightly higher ceiling. But like Drew said, the floor is substantially lower. Like, like I think that, you know, because of the potential volume issues that he might run into. So there's definitely a more risk reward in adding Fant compared to Hawk. I would totally prefer Hawk over Fant on any of my teams, but I don't mind having Fant. Like I like Fant. I think he's a guy that I'm cool adding. But yeah, Josh rattled off like, you know, 8 guys that are fantasy relevant people have on their rosters from Denver, which is crazy because they don't have anybody to distribute them. I mean, Teddy hopefully can be efficient enough to help them out, but it's not like this team is built to be prolific, right? Like they're built to be efficient on offense and let the defense win. So, you know, that would be the concern with Fant, but I'm totally fine with him on my rosters, and I don't mind. There is a decent price difference between the two of them, so like I'm okay going with the bargain Fant if I prefer to draft somebody else, you know, where Hawkinson's getting drafted.
Yeah, so there you go, Josh. Bill and Drew think that you could be right. I don't, but man, that's why we play the game, man. You know, the difference of opinions, man. That's what makes it great. And you know, find the Josh in your league. And when I say Josh, I'm talking about me. Find the guy that goes, man, that you know, that's not going to happen. And say, all right, man, you got Noah Fant, I got TJ Hockinson. Let's do a little switch of do. You give me, you know, you give me some sweeteners, as Drew likes to say, some sweeteners on top of that.
Fant and Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards, sweetener of the day, and maybe that should be a new
artificial sweetener,
a new segment on the show, the sweetener of the day, the trade sweetener of the day. And today is Gus Edwards, but you know, yeah, you know, say hey, you really like TJ Hockinson? I'll take no fan off your hands. You give me some extras, and we'll make it work. And that's what makes the game fun. So, find the guy like me who thinks that TJ Hockinson is going to be pretty damn good, and Noah Fant is a good player, but has a lot around him. And let's go. So this next one is from Chris McConnell at Wizard of Roto. Stop cuffing your own running backs. Cuff other people's running backs. That's how you maximize the upside on your bench. If you own Zach Moss, don't draft Devin. And we're talking about Devin Singletary here. Instead, draft Kenyan Drake. Better player, higher upside. And if Zach Moss and Josh Jacobs get hurt, we know Kenyan's value is a lot higher. So what are your opinions, you guys, about handcuff running backs? Are you all about getting your own? Are you all about getting others? Is it a nice little mix? Tell me what you guys think about it.
I don't give it a whole lot of thought, to be honest with you. Like I get it. Like I get the argument. Like if that player gets hurt, then you end up having 2 starters, like, you know, if you have the backup. But I mean, I get it. It depends. Honestly, it depends on like how, like what the size is of your I think your rosters. Like if there's like a short, you know, short rosters, I would probably agree. But if it's deeper, I mean, you're gonna have so many backs that you might fall into something somewhere else. So I'm okay maybe grabbing somebody who is the surefire handcuff. But you know, like I mean, a lot of analysts that are smarter than me have said you oftentimes you don't even know who that real handcuff is. So you're taking a risk. I mean, maybe in like Dallas, you're pretty sure Pollard's it, right? Like there's probably a handful. So like in those instances, I'm okay doing that. But you are missing out on some potential boom for your team. You're almost playing safe by drafting your backup as opposed to somebody else's. So Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the comment that Drake's necessarily better, like that, but that's a whole nother conversation. The points taken, and yeah, so I mean, if I were to say I lean one way or the other, I agree that I would probably lean towards drafting a different back, like a back from a different team than my starters, but I'm not overly worried about it, honestly, if I have a deeper roster.
Yeah, so it's interesting because, um, and I could be wrong because I was wrong about I think it was Daniel Jones ADP last week, but I think Kenyan Drake has a higher ADP than both Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. So in that case, I mean, I would probably most likely draft. I mean, I know personally, I think Kenyan Drake is better than both of those guys. So I would personally draft him before both of those guys. But I think ADP also agrees with that. So the average person would also do that. But I could be wrong. Maybe people love Zach Moss. I've never seen the appeal, but I know that there are some truthers out there, so I don't want to.
Kenyan Drake is third out of those three backs in ADP.
Man, I'm glad
Unfair.
I've never been invited on like Dynasty game night or anything, even though I have said to Outhouse in the past, don't ever invite me. I would be terrible at this. And he goes, everyone says that, and I go, no, but I try to play along with the game while I'm listening, and I am terrible. So
as of
That's funny.
this is August, I believe. Yeah. Moss was 114, which makes sense based on his tweet. Like, Moss getting drafted, so then you take Singletary. Singletary's 137 and Drake's 145.
wow.
I would
I
have
wonder
thought
how
Drake would have
that's
been in the middle at least.
I wonder how that's changed from maybe May or June, because I feel like at one point everyone was like practically thinking that he was going to take the job
Oh
from
yeah, they were
Josh
out on
Jacobs.
Jacobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we've corrected that now, and maybe even overcorrected a little bit. But so yeah, I'm from the mindset that usually I'm just trying to take the best player, in my opinion, where I'm at. And I don't really worry about like, is it my guy's handcuff or is it somebody else's handcuff? I'm just trying to build the best overall team. I think there are certain situations where I think it's okay maybe to reach a little bit, not a ton, a little bit for a handcuff. If you have a guy like Dalvin Cook that has an injury history, guys like that where it's kind of like, they can miss anywhere from 3 to all the games in a season, maybe it's okay to do that. But Bill brought up a good one, Tony Pollard, Zeke Elliott. Like if I have Zeke, I'm not actively pursuing Tony Pollard. Now, if he gets to a spot where I'm like, wow, this is way too low, I will pick him up. But I'm definitely not looking at Tony Pollard and saying, well, I need to grab him in the event that Zeke gets hurt. Because I think Bill nailed it on the head. You're playing safe. You're not, you're almost playing to be in, sixth place instead of playing to be in first place. But, again, he brought up the Bills example, and no offense, Drew, I don't like either one of those guys. So
Zach Moss is a league winner this year, just FYI.
Says
if you play in a
fan.
league where players named Zach Moss get 100 extra points, he would be a league winner. But
Zach Moss, 1,300 yards.
we could put that on the board too if you want. But yeah, so I think it all depends on, where you're at in the draft, who's available, and not necessarily like reaching, people who reach for handcuffs. Yeah, I think you're doing yourself and your team a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
But if a guy's there, I will take him. If he's the best guy on my board, I will take him, and I don't care if he's my handcuff, because great thing about Dynasty is that, you know what? Somebody else might like him, and that might be a trade I make, later down the road, or, whatever the case may be. So what about you, Drew? What do you think?
I'm with Bill. I don't give it a whole lot of thought. There are a couple things I'll look at, though, as I get into the mid rounds or a little bit later. And, if somebody has been, if they've done the modified zero RB or something where they've done maybe one really good running back and, they're starting to look a little thin there, then, I may, just take that away from them and see, if that pays off somewhere down the road. If you have the opportunity, that's where the NFL is going, is so many of these committees anyways. So somebody's out for a couple of weeks, you never know when it could hit for you, but it's definitely that value piece. I'm not looking to reach and grab somebody just because I saw someone took JT. I'm not taking Nyheim Hines 2 rounds early just to say that I've got him and hope I can dangle him out there or use him myself. It definitely is a boom bust kind of a thing, or are you playing to win or playing not to lose? I can get that concept too. I think I do tend to be a little bit more conservative. If I've got a top guy, I do probably, kind of gauge where do I want to take the backup, so that way I know I've got a guaranteed starter, especially if it's one of these clear places where, who the next guy up is. If it's muddy and it's going to be a committee and it's, even now in Buffalo, right? You're watching Matt Breida run off, tear off 10, 15-yard gains. He's just got to be available for the right 3 or 4 games, and he could ruin, your Devin Singletary draft idea. So, no, I don't give it a whole lot of thought. But if I do see somebody that's, really maybe over investing in one position and leaving RB off the table until really late, then, great. There might be some trade opportunity down there. I can maybe get some value from them. But ultimately, I think I'm looking at making as balanced a team as possible. And you take those shots where you can to try to hit on some value so you can ultimately flip them for something better to give yourself a chance, whether it's, crap, my team sucks and I need to flip this person to get a draft pick, or, maybe I have an abundance of running backs now, and now I can package that running back with my wide receiver 2 to add another top 12 wide receiver to make a playoff push.
Love it. Love it. So, you know what? We got one more. Let's drop this one here real quick because it's really easy.
Yes.
So, yep. This is from Brandon at Comeback Commish. J.K. Dobbins was dropped in my Dynasty League. Do I spend 30% of my budget and stash him on my IR? No, spend 100% of your fab.
Why are you capping at 30?
Yeah, spend 100% of
You
your
might
fab.
need a wide receiver later in the year.
Stop it.
Yeah, okay.
People were spending 100% on James Robinson last year.
I'm interested to see, I'm going to go into that tweet because I'm interested to see what everybody's responses were.
Everybody's response is, yeah, go ahead and do that right now.
All his league mates are like, yes, 30% is perfect.
Because I'm putting in 100. I mean, yeah.
That's where I'm trading whatever's at the end of my bench for an extra 5% so I can put in 105% bid if fab is tradable.
And Drew, that's such a good point, and that's a point that I think a lot of people don't think about in situations like this. Is like, we talk about trading fab, and it's almost like a joke. Like, hey, how about I add $5 of fab onto this deal? Does it change your mind at all? And people are like, $5 of fab, who the hell cares? But in a situation like this, yeah, that extra $5 might be the difference between you having J.K. Dobbins on your IR and the guy next to you having J.K. Dobbins on his or her IR. So, yeah, this is a situation. Trade, Donald Parham for $3 in fab, and whatever else you might have at the end of your bench, whatever third string running back, hey, you want, I'll trade them to you for $5. Yeah, I don't care about $5 and then, you come in with $105 bid while everyone else is pulling out $100 bids and you win a guy like J.K. Dobbins. But yeah, it's funny. We, most of us, play in leagues with smart people who would never drop a J.K. Dobbins. So when we see something like this, I like to bring it on because we have to remember that not everybody is playing in leagues with sharks, and these things happen, and you have to be ready. So, anything else you guys want to throw out on this one, real?
Nope. Go get them.
Yeah, go get them. Spend 100%. Spend everything you got, and hope you win it. So, that's the end of the show here. Want to thank everybody that was in and out and watching us. FF_Schmuck was in the chat. He was throwing some good things out there. He agreed with me a lot, so that's good. I like that. Bill's nodding his head, even though Bill he also agreed with Bill since we co-own that team together. So, but no, I appreciate that. When the chat is going off, it's always a ton of fun. It always brings more to the conversation. Thank you to everybody who was in. Remember to hit subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we go live. If you're listening to us in podcast form, make sure you leave a rate and review. That helps us to get in front of other people. And on that note, Bill, we are out of here.
Late.